Hello. Hello. Hi everyone. How's it going? So yeah, welcome back to another Q&A. Gotta gotta keep up on the lingo. Yeah, so we have the Q&A tonight, and practice with me is every Tuesday night. So yeah, as I say, guys, this part of my teaching throughout the week is kind of my favorite part, because not only is it because it's over DA, to ask me anything at all that you like or are interested in about music, but it also means that I get to sort of have to think about things and maybe go off and find an answer to things that I've never thought about. So if you do have any questions, you know what to do. Pop it in the chat, and also the community. I've got to get the community up and running as well, because you never know. Someone could put a question in there and I might miss it. Yeah, so as I say, the usual questions tend to be, they can be general. What bands do you recommend? What instruments would you recommend for beginners? Recording equipment, how to maintain your instrument, music theory questions. What does this mean? What does that mean in the music? Um, Anything music history related as well. So it's not doesn't have to be just trad. By the way, this could be anything. I may probably, if it's anything, I probably won't know the answer, but I can definitely find out. I've definitely got all the kit and caboodle behind me to go and search these things, and subscriptions to all these online dictionaries, encyclopedias, and stuff. So if I don't know, it's a great learning opportunity for me. So yeah, over to you guys. Okay, hi Martin. Hi Declan. I'm trying to get my head around counterpoint. Is it scale based or chord based, or am I barking up the wrong tree altogether? No, you're right. It's kind of both. If I was to show you what strict counterpoint looks like, it's basically a classical musical term that I'm using for that. You can call it counter melodies if you have a sort of a counter melody is just really a smaller melody in the background against the main melody. And yeah, that goes way back, way back into medieval history. Believe it or not, it was these counter melodies and polyphonic textures, what you would call it, if you have more than two or more melodies at the same time. That's much older than modern harmony, triadic harmony. Your C, E, G, and all that sort of stuff for chords. That's all relatively recent. When I say relatively recent, in the last 400 years. But polyphonic texture goes way back into early medieval, and even before. A lot of the written records, I'm not really sure exactly when it kind of started. Most people say around about 10th century, around about there in Notre Dame Cathedral, and that's only because that's where we get our first composers, our first written record of composers. So counterpoint is a style of polyphonic texture. And I'm going to show you guys what it strictly should look like, because it is a little bit of harmony. Like, it's harmonious and it creates a separate melody at the same time. Okay, let me show you what I mean by that. And hopefully this will also give you guys an idea of how much freedom you can take when it comes to coming up with your own melodies and things. Okay, let me see. Let me see if am I too loud, guys? Because it's coming through a wee bit buzzy on my headphones. So just thumbs up if everything sounds okay, or if it's out of sync or anything. Just let me know, or if it sounds okay. And while you're doing that, I'll get the stuff ready for counterpoint. Okay. Let me see. If I go in, if I share my screen just to show you guys what I see. Okay. These are all of my folders you see in the back end of my company, really, places I work and stuff, and courses I do. There's all of you guys, all of your stuff is in here. Okay, so that's everything that I do as regards Bouzouki needs to be in that folder. Never accidentally delete that. But the thing that we need to look at is actually here in music history, and it's probably best to look at it. Yeah, well, let's look at it in medieval music. Yeah, just to give you an idea, we'll go through medieval, Renaissance, Baroque, because there's only one little picture out of each one I need to show you guys. If the handout allows me to resize it, there we go. Okay, so if I just scroll on down. Yeah, this is an excellent example of Pucciolette, and this is a type of 13th century motet. This is what you would call polyphonic texture, guys. Okay, so polyphonic texture, we're going to start there. Really what medieval people did, composers, is they just slapped melodies down on top of each other. They did try to make sure that they, most of the time, they would blend, you know, that the two or three, not blend's the wrong word, that they would sound good most of the time. Okay, so there's 2 or 3 melodies here. In fact, this song, Pucciolette, has 2 other vocal parts. One's for a tenor voice singing the plain chant for Domino, and the other one's a French love poem. So, like, you have religious music and French love poetry all sort of shoved together here. That was typical of medieval style of writing melodies, okay? So layering melodies on top of each other like that, that's very sort of early polyphony. When you get into the next period of history, into the Renaissance period, so you're talking around 1450, 1600 onwards, you're hitting more sort of blended texture. Okay, so you are thinking about blending the melodies together. And I think I've scrolled past what I need to show you. Yeah. Okay, so this is a Renaissance motet. Okay, so the Renaissance motets are all about blending textures. And if we zoom in here, you can see, if I activate this little screen thing, that usually when you have melodies like this in the Renaissance period, they're imitating one another. Okay, so this melodic line here, it's kind of the same as this melodic line here. It's kind of the same as this melodic line here, and that's kind of the same as this melodic line here. Okay, so that was new for the Renaissance period. That separates the Renaissance from the medieval style music, but it's still polyphonic. Okay, you still have 4 melodies at once. Okay, so that's the major development in the Renaissance period, was imitation, one part imitating another. So it sounds super blended and smooth compared to the medieval. This is also a motet. This is a lot more rhythmic, and you know, you can hear a pulse in this. Whereas if I was to play this or sing this, I'm not going to sing it. If you were to sing this, it would sound almost like there's no time signature, there's no pulse. It's super blended and smooth. Okay, so that's what you get with Renaissance music. Oh, there was a thing there. The Baroque style is probably closer to what we do. Okay, so just to finish up my little tour of polyphonic textures, this is now pure counterpoint. Okay, this is J.S. Bach. Doesn't get much more complicated or advanced than this, where you've got, if I zoom into maybe 500%, you could probably see it a wee bit better. Yeah. You've got one melodic idea here. Actually, it's a wee bit longer than that. It's the subject. It goes to here. Then it's imitated, but up here in a different voice part. And then that's imitated by the time you get down to here in a different voice part. Now, Martin, your question was counterpoint. Is it scale-based or chord-based? Both. So you're thinking in terms of the vertical and the horizontal. You've got to think in terms of the scales, yes, but it's got to sound harmonious with the other voice part. So in other words, if I was to freeze frame at any point to say here, where I've got like 3 voices, you know, this top soprano, I suppose, and the alto line, so they're a little bit high for an alto line, and the tenor line here. If I was to look at the notes that are created here, there's 3 separate melodies, but there's a D here, there's a D here, and there's an F up here. Okay, so they're actually going to sound, you know, if I was to make sure that my keyboard is on, they're going to sound harmonious with each other, like almost triadic, almost. Oh, my keyboard, is it not? Oh, there we go. Okay, so the D and the F actually should be up here. The chord actually next door to it is even more, as a better example, in fact. We've got a C, E flat from the key signature, and a G. That's a C minor chord. Actually, that C should be down here. So if I was to play just this part here on the piano really badly, that's it. In fact, try that again. Can't see the piano. So to see the way it almost sounds like there's chords just being played there, but as you can see, this top part is a melodic line, this bottom part's a melodic line, and this, or that middle part's a melodic line, and this bottom part's a melodic line. That's counterpoint. Counterpoint is considered like the top of polyphonic texture. At the very bottom, you just have layering. You know, medieval composers taking a Latin chant that's been around since like the 6th century or something, and then slapping a 13th century French love poem over the top of it, and most of the time they will go well together. Interestingly, the parts where it doesn't go well together, that's where composers, we hear a little clash in the melody. That's where composers started to introduce flats and sharps, and that's how we ended up with flats and sharps. The entire major minor scale system was developed like that over centuries. By the time you hit late Renaissance, early Baroque, the major minor system had been laid down, but it took a long time before it was accepted as the standard. So in the medieval and Renaissance periods, most of the harmony would have been considered modal. You're using your modes, not so much the major minor system. By the time you hit the Baroque period with Bach, late Baroque in fact, his death in 1750 kind of is the traditional end point of the Baroque period. By the time you hit that period in history, your textures have moved from just simple layering past imitation that you would have got in the Renaissance period that we saw earlier into this very advanced counterpoint. And this is what goes through my mind when I'm playing the bouzouki, is I'm thinking of, is that going to sound good with the melody? I'm coming up with like these try and keep it as simple as possible, simple little, melodic motifs and little ideas. Don't try and do a complete J.S. Bach counter, a completely separate melody to it, or imitating it like, a fifth higher or something, because you would need to have sat down and worked out like Bach has for every single individual note to make sure that it sounds good. Or at least if you introduce a dissonance, that you resolve the dissonance. It just doesn't sit there in the air. So you've got to maybe think about, yes, it's harmonious and it's thinking of the vertical and the horizontal together, but you should try and keep it short and sweet. Try and keep the melodic motifs quite short, and always base them around just decorating what the chord is. So I always say to students who are learning the bouzouki, if you can learn like another instrument, like for the trad world, even if it's just, you're not taking it too far, just like very basic tin whistle, just to learn the melody. Don't worry about trying to make yourself sound like the next All-Ireland champion on the whistle. Just to learn the basic outlines to a lot of tunes. I reckon after you've learned maybe about 30 or 40 tunes on the tin whistle, the structure and the patterns, the melodic patterns that you will find in jigs and reels become so cemented in your playing that when it comes to putting a counter melody to that, you're just going to know that it's going to sound, most of the time it's going to sound good. So it's well worth investigating if you wanted to learn just a little bit of, say, tin whistle or flute or something. Very simple wee tunes, just to sort of get a good grasp of the melodic patterns that exist in trad music. And I'm not saying every tune is made up of the same, 5 or 6 patterns, but there's probably about 30 or 40 patterns that would encompass thousands of trad tunes. But there are exceptions, of course. So yes, that's a really good question. Is it based around chords or is it based around scales? It's based around chords in so much that it must sound harmonious, but don't be afraid to come up with a little mini counter melody just for that stage in the music. It's not going to be like that the whole way through. Unless you are like doing it maybe in the style of Andy Irvine and Planxty, where you're sort of doing a complete counter melody to your singing. but he has sat down and worked that out, you know. The one that I always tell students to listen out for is, I think it's Marianne the Soldier, sung by, is it Paul Brady and Andy Irvine? Was it Paul Brady, Andy Irvine, and Donal Lunny? I think it was those three guys together, and the way that those three instruments weave in and out of each other, they're all based around the harmony. Okay, so yeah, do you think of it in terms of the way, as you can see here, J.S. Bach is thinking of it, that he's got a good idea of the harmonic foundation of the piece, and then you would use that as your scaffolding to sort of put your melody and your counter melodies over the top of that. So if we look at, let me see if I close these guys down. Close all tabs. Let me see. What would be a good starting point, I wonder? Let me see. If I go into Bouzouki, there's Bouzouki again. Make these a wee bit smaller, actually, so we get a bit of room. Coppers and brasses, maybe not. That's one that I'm working on. I suppose that Scatter the Mud one from that we were looking at last night is a good example, actually, where we came up with about 4 or 5 melodic ideas. Yeah. This also feeds into the other topic, guys, about session etiquette. That it's quite hard, I think, for guitar players, bouzouki players, and bodhrán players when they're joining a session. It's because we are accompaniment instrumentalists. We have to be really sure what we're doing. As they say in the trad world, is the only thing that really bulldozes a session would be, you know, if someone's playing overconfidently on an instrument that they're not really capable of playing, and they don't really know the tune, and they're playing very loudly. That's the recipe for bulldozing a session. So we kind of have to know a lot of the tunes we're going to play, or at least have a very, very good idea of those melodic patterns, which do come naturally, and everyone's got their own sort of way of interpreting them. So when you're looking at something like this, for example, if I was to, I wonder, can I do this at the same time? I will try doing this on the bouzouki at the same time. Don't worry, it's not really going to turn into a bouzouki lesson, but it's just to make sure that you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay, get the strap around me. Oh, that's not on. There we go. Okay, hopefully this is actually on. I think so. I'm just gonna check my OBS to see. It looks like it's on. The bouzouki. And we're on capo on 5. Okay, so this is a good demonstration of what I mean about coming up with something based around harmony and then melodic ideas. So harmony and melody, or harmony and scales, if you think of it that way. Capo on 7. Okay, so capo on 7, you've got 1, 2, 3 bars here of just the same chord. Now, when you're starting out, I always recommend just to play just the chords as they're written down there, just in the chord charts here. Just play it like that. Bearing in mind, as I said, in session etiquette, you're not meant to be drowning out anybody, so don't really lash into those chords, unless the person who's performing wants you to play louder to help them out. Then yeah, go for it. But it's usually sort of politer just to sort of keep your keep your volume, your dynamic level, keep it low. It's at the start. Hopefully it's not too low. So what I'm doing in there is, I wonder if I could show you guys this actually on the bouzouki. Yeah. Maybe if I do this. And maybe I have to move my camera. Oh my goodness, it's edit about 5 different things here. Yeah, good. There we go. So hopefully you guys can actually see. I'll bring up the thingy as well. There we go. So really the tuning that I'm using here should be... Okay, so we are using capo on 7, D, A, E, A would be the tuning for each of those strings. And what we have here then is, I might have to actually move this camera a wee bit more so you guys can see it. Yeah. Maybe move my mic out of the way. There we go. Okay, so okay, so for there, yeah, I'm just doing like almost an arpeggiation of it. So is an arpeggio a melodic or a harmonic idea? It's kind of both, because what you're doing is you are playing something that is like a triad, but you're not playing it all at once. You're breaking the chord up. So you're thinking of it more in sort of, linear or horizontal rather than the vertical. So if it was just block chords, okay, so it is now becoming a bit more melodic. Now, all of that is happening when you're doing what is the actual thing? Oh, what's this? He's got in the mud. Yeah, so ba 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 bum. Now, none of those are going to clash, all those little motifs I had in there. So there's this arpeggiated one, which I'm doing a hammer on. And then a little scalic idea going down. And another sort of arpeggiated idea. Ba-da-dum. All of it's going to sound harmonious with that chord. So the trick then is for you guys to be coming up with, your own sort of counter melody. But you can, obviously use mine and the ones that we're going through in these courses and things, that you would add in your own versions of it. Of course, you don't have to do it exactly the way I'm doing it. Nobody does. Nobody does exactly the same as everybody else. Everyone comes up with their own sort of ideas based around the common assumption that if you want to move away from just playing block chords, that you are going to be basing it on either triadic movement, like arpeggios, or scalic ideas. Usually my scalic ideas involve just, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, or even just the first three fingers added to each string. So add your first finger there, second finger there, third finger there. Or it'll be obviously something slightly different, if I take the capo off and played it down in D. But it's the same ideas, just in a different key. But in this key of A Dorian, whatever we're in here, same thing for here. Bearing in mind as well that string, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up from the capo, it should be the same note as your first course. Sometimes you do want to use this one instead, though, for hammer-ons up to it. So things like that, those are sort of more maybe triadic based, but I do have a lot of so those would be more sort of scalic patterns going up by step. So it's really up to your own sort of style, guys. What do you prefer? Do you prefer more triadic movement or more scalic movement? I try to do a little bit of mix of both, but I probably would come heavily more down in favor of triadic movement. Yeah. So what does that sound like, really? And this is not going to be the nicest of sounds because it's just the audio from the file. So that and then every so often I would have like a if I go back to the desktop just for a second to show you guys something that's related to this, if I go down, let me see if I just go way down at the bottom of this tune. You see the way I'm just using A, G sus2, A, G sus2, A, G sus2, and then the E power chord, and G sus2, G sus2 again, and an A. It's really only those three chords. So it's the same sort of. Yeah, so if I played the audio again, just from the start. You know what, it just occurs to me, I'm going to open this in MuseScore so you can actually follow the audio easier. Don't know why I was doing it split across those two. This is just if you don't have MuseScore, but you guys can easily get this for free online. MuseScore, it's a free program. So I would always recommend students to get this and use this for their practicing because they can control the speed. You know, you click on here and you can slow that down to what and put in whatever. You know, if you really wanted to slow down the tune down to like 60, you can accompany it at that speed. You know, or even slower. How slow do you want to go? No. Maybe that's a bit slow. Yeah, we'll be here all night. So you don't want to go that slow, but you can control how you have the speed of it, whatever way you want to, guys. Whatever way you guys want to practice it. It's going to put it back to the normal sort of 115 is the way I recorded it in the whistle as well. Yeah, so do you see the way this is da-dum, bum, 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 bum? That's the sort of bass line that you have here. Dum, bum, bum, bum. Now those three chords, sort of go back to Martin's point again, those three chords harmonize what you have, the melody. An A is obviously going to harmonize an A and an A in the melody. The G is going to harmonize the G, all the way down here, in fact, GBD as well. So that chord harmonizes all four of these notes. Okay, and then the E would harmonize that and that. Actually, not the A, but there you go. It's just a non-harmony note for that. Da-dum-dum. So the A is a little bit dissonant, but it goes back to G almost immediately. And this harmonizes that. So would you play this all the time? You don't have to. This is the interesting thing about modal harmony, is that there are going to be times when the harmony clashes, or the harmony will clash with the melody. And what I tend to do quite a bit would be do that scalic idea that I'm sure any of you guys who are in the mini course or the full course will have come across me doing this. Da, 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 dum. That will not harmonize properly with this melody, because it would be da 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 dum. What chord am I playing there? Okay, if I move this out of the way, I'm actually playing this chord here. I'm playing an F chord while there's a G major triad in the melody, GBD. So that surely you would argue is going to clash with this. But in context, it makes sense because you're playing a descending harmonic progression starting from the A and working your way down to D minor. I think it's D minor. Yeah, it's D minor. That's what your target is. So we're starting up here with the A power chord. Then we're moving down to that G sus2 chord, the way I describe it. So that's where we are here. Everything, we're just copying exactly for this bar, exactly the same thing. But then when we get to the next chord, we're going to have like a dissonance here. I wonder if I put that in, what does it actually sound like? So you guys can hear it in context. So you see, it would be not you. There should be another one. Let me see. Or maybe I don't have it up here. Let me see if I just put this in. I'm going to select that note, put this chord in, and then edit it for you guys. So I just select that, and it's going to make this an F chord. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay, so this is a F chord. So it's this one here. Capo on 7, and actually that's what I'm gonna name it as well. So F capo on 7. So we won't have to ever make this chord again. There we go. And actually, that's what I'm going to call it too. If I just select that note and just put that in, have this as F. Yeah. So hopefully you guys can actually hear that as well. I'm assuming that's coming through the computer audio. Do you hear how it clashes? Okay, so it doesn't sound proper there, but in context of a descending scale, if I was to go down A, down to G like we have, then down to F, and then down to this E, and then arrive here at a D minor chord, which again is going to clash with this whole bar. This whole bar is definitely outlining a G chord from the looks of it. G, B, D, and G. The only notes that don't belong are actually him and this one over here. Those are the only two notes that don't belong to this chord. So you would think this is the more obvious choice, yes, when you're starting off, but you will of course start introducing, and you need to know where you're going to do it. You're going to introduce chords that are going to clash with the overall harmony or the overall melody. If I was to take this out and put in that D chord, D minor, take out this, yeah, and then add that in there. Okay, what does it sound like now? Okay, so there's parts of it that are going to clash, like here and here. Okay, but the rest of it's okay. So it's really going to come down, as I say, guys, to your decision. Like, what are you going to be doing when it comes to, you're making up your own sort of chords? Are you going to stick strictly to the melody? I would recommend doing that at the start. And then when you start seeing and hearing that certain patterns of chords can actually be put into jigs and reels, even if there's a couple of occasions where the chords are going to clash, that's very common. It's very common. You don't want it clashing too much though, so that it sounds jarring. It should sound like it belongs to a pattern. Da 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 dum. And that's what makes modal harmony quite interesting, I think, is that it's not always just based around triadic movement all the time in the melody. Yeah. So sorry that was such a long-winded answer. Yeah, so mixture of scales, mixture of chords, but do base your melody starting off based on the chords, stick close to the chords, and then over time you'll start stretching out from that, start adding in little decorations here on either side of the chord, but they should always be pointing in towards the chord, so even if I'm doing like that note doesn't belong, that's just a passing note to get me to that note. Okay, so hopefully that answers that question. Radio. I shall try and move my bazooka out of the way. After I read a couple, let me see. Kathleen. Oh, hi, Kathleen. How's it going? At work, so using a different account. The counterpoint was a very interesting topic. Thanks for asking that one, Martin. Yeah, counterpoint, guys, is I'm not sure if many trap musicians even use the terminology. They may say counter melody more, but it doesn't actually matter. What you're looking for is just some melodic decoration. Imagine you're playing this tune, that you've learnt this tune in the bouzouki, but rather than playing exactly what's written, you're playing a little bit of a variation of it. So it's not always going to be, just you playing a melody. You're going to be playing chords, and every so often you put in like a little melodic flourish here and there. And it may be just harmonizing the melody that you have here. Yeah, that's another one. So other ideas I'm just coming up with there as I'm listening to that after the second time. Yeah, I could spend all night just doing that. I want you guys to, ask me questions and other things, so it doesn't turn into just another bouzouki. That's okay. Radio. For you guys who actually are on the mini and full course, just to remind you as well that I'm still adding more things like this into it. There was a big one that landed, I think, 2 days ago. God, where's the time going? I don't know what day it is. It wasn't yesterday. Was it yesterday? Oh jeez, I don't know. But there was like about 12 tunes with all the MuseScore things like this, and all the sort of sheet music and the audio as well. I'm still going through the others. So yeah, part 2. I think I've done Coolies. I think the Coolies. Yeah, Coolies reel is done, so that's going to be added up. And I will be going through. There's Coolies, Dusty Windowsills is already done. Lad O'Byrne's is coming on. Mountain Road's already done. Out in the Ocean, I need to do. Star of Munster, I need to do. Humours of Glendart, already done. Lilting Banshee, I need to do. Mug of Brown Ale, I need to do. Reel of Rio, I need to do. And that's its part 2. So there's going to be another 6 or so, or 5 or 6 other tunes that are going to be added in. Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, we see Martin. Thanks, Declan. I'll have to watch this a few more times, but I get the gist and take the take on the short motif idea. Yeah, think of it like once you've got your chords, you want to decorate based on the harmony. You learn the chords first, because that's always your fallback. If you mess it up, and I'm on the fly there's loads of times I'm messing up and I just go back to what the harmony was. But once you start practicing and sort of adding your own stuff in, try just going a little bit further on either side of the chord. So instead of just playing A, try doing like a melodic idea like A, B, C, where B doesn't work with the chord, but it's just a little scale. So it's like ba ba bum. You're going up to it. So rather than just doing chords, you want maybe something like that, da da dum, and maybe going down. Like if I demonstrated on the piano, make it easier to actually see. So there's my, if I bring in the analysis. Oh, hello analysis, where have you gone? Analysis? Thank you. Okay, so it's an A minor. So that note there clashes the B. So instead of just doing just your A chord all the time, maybe da 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 da, but all those notes, that belongs, and that belongs. They all belong to A minor, but just to get from da da da, so the G doesn't belong. That doesn't belong. Then it goes up to A. And if you play that, while you're playing your A, you're not going to be that repetitive where you're just doing that over and over again. You would want to maybe then have go into another pattern or another melodic idea or motif, and you go into the next chord. So the way that I started off learning these was to have one for each chord. And a lot of them were based around triadic movement, because as I say, I sort of fall a little bit harder on that side rather than the scalic melodic ideas. I fall more in the sort of harmonic ideas. So I was always doing the hammer-ons to nearly every single chord. So could I figure out a way of getting a hammer-on somewhere in the music? So whatever chord you're playing, for example, in this one, if you're playing the E power chord, so just say you're playing that chord. Make this a bit larger. If you're playing that chord, is there any way of lifting off a finger and hammering it back on again? And then can I make that into a melodic idea? I tend to do that a lot with this B. Like lift my third finger off when I'm playing that and just hammer it back on. And then maybe do the same thing for this B. So you're lifting your finger off completely and then hammering it back on. When you lift it off, you're getting that A, B. So even though you having this chord, so you're da-da, that's what should come out of the instrument. Ba-bum. So when you're strumming it, don't be afraid to experiment with some of the chords, taking a finger off and hammering it back down again to see, can that create like a little sort of counter melodic or a little counter idea to the main melody? And even if it is dissonant with the melody, it doesn't matter so much because you're resolving that dissonance almost immediately. You're bringing the note back to where it should be in the chord. In this case, B. So yeah, try farting around with hammer-ons a lot. That's what I did. And then you can move into the scaling patterns, just going up and down on either side of that. Maybe going from B up to C. But can you get your pinky finger in there to do it? Dun, dun, dun. So yeah, you're doing a lot of work in just one string there. Hammer on, then pinky finger, and then hammer on again. So there could be loads of ways of doing it. Let me see, Paul. Instrument, let's say a tune they're about to play is an A or G or D. How would I know where to place the capo, assuming I know the chords of the tune? Oh, yes, that's a good one. There tends to be, I think, guys, if I make this large, capo-wise, there tends to be like certain areas of the bouzouki to watch out for. If I were you guys, get used to, first of all, playing without a capo. You should learn a chord progression in D. Obviously, without a capo, that's going to be easy enough because you're already in that sort of tuning, D, E, A, D. You should be able to do one in the key of G without a capo as well. And you should be able to do one in the key of A. So there's sort of 3 patterns there that I learned without the capo. I probably have never... Yeah. I'm going to say that... I probably have never played a tune in E minor without putting the capo on 2. There probably is a way of doing it, but for me, it just doesn't make it just makes better sense to put the capo down on 2. So anything that's in like E Aeolian or E Dorian or anything like that, capo on 2. So think of 2 as your E area, because once you've added the capo, you've added E, B, E to your open strings. Okay, so anything to do with E, capo on 2. Okay, so there's quite a few tunes like that. If I actually just show you guys. Let me see if I can open this up. Where would I have put in this? Let me see. I think there was a video I did. Maybe it was in part 1, actually. Yeah, bear with me, guys, to see if I can find you the handout to what to look up. Oh, where would it have been? Too many handouts. I need to go through and organize this. Goodness. I'm looking. Yeah, it's definitely in here somewhere. Yeah. Notes in Irish traditional music. That is the handout. Yeah, that was a nightmare to make. Okay, you have tin whistle notation in here as well. I want to get rid of this. Okay, so yeah, you have E Aeolian and E Dorian. So you have 2 keys that are going to require capo on 2. Okay, so anything in E, in other words, you just add your capo. So if you're in E Aeolian, your actual scale should be then you're going to be hitting that C. I actually think that's what Scatter the Mud is in E Aeolian. Yeah. Oh, it's actually an A, sorry. Yeah, so this one is E Aeolian and you have E Dorian, capo on 2. Take the capo off for anything in D, so D Ionian or D Mixolydian. Now, if you're doing D Mixolydian, the difference between all of these guys is, are you using a C or a C sharp? Really, that's the difference. You're using F sharp everywhere in trad music, but C natural or C sharp is possible in tin whistles, flutes, uilleann pipes. And of course, easy on mandolin, banjo, fiddle, bouzouki. But on the whistle instruments or on the wind instruments, it's that's the only real easy accidental to do before you start needing keys or covering half notes and things or half holes. So for this is where the difference lies. So here you can see D Mixolydian is not going to have the C sharp. You have everything under this blue line. So D basically up to D. And you can continue on up the scale if you want. But it's really just D to D is the actual mode. And the C for D Ionian, except now you are using C sharp and you're not using C natural. Okay. So if you're going to do the G, you should be able to do that without a capo. I'm gonna play some of these actually to let you guys hear some of the chord progressions I do, without a capo. You should be able to do it, but if you are going to use a capo, add it to 5. Okay, so capo 1, 2 for all your E minor E stuff, or E Dorian and E Aeolian, and capo on 5 for your G Ionian scale, or your G major scale if you want to call it that. So your capo on 5. Okay. If you are going to do any of the A Dorian, or even A Mixolydian, you put that capo up 2 more to 7. And that's where we were for Scatter the Mud. Okay, so we were in, I think, A Dorian, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and A. Okay, and the A Mixolydian would just be, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, and A. There's 2 keys for that as well. So 2 for the E's, 2 for the A's, only 1 for the G. But you should be able to play G without a capo anyway, so you can kind of consider 2 positions for each key. So you can have, for D, there's really, I'll show you one for D with the capo, but for D, the most traditional way to play D is just without a capo. For E, it's a capo on 2. That'll get you the 2 keys that are use that, E Dorian and E Aeolian. For A, there are 2. It's A Dorian and A Mixolydian, and your capo is going on 7 for that. And for the last one, for B, you can get away with putting this on 9. However, the tuning does begin to go out a wee bit when you start going that high into your bouzouki, unless you've got it very well, the new strings and the truss rod and everything, the action is perfect and you've got it exactly the way you want. So when I'm playing anything in B Aeolian, I usually just play without a capo. Oops. Okay, because the interesting thing about this key is it may start in B Aeolian, but it's not going to stay there. So it may be in that key, for a while. And then when you get into the second half of the piece, it moves into D Ionian. That's quite common. So if you were to hear a piece like, let me see if I can activate my whistle. Okay, hopefully you guys can still hear me. And I'm on the whistle app or the whistle audio. So this would be one that uses the B Aeolian. Second half is in D. Okay, so you're in the B at the start for the A section, and then it goes into D. That's why I don't put a capo on. I know some people who do, and then they have to sort of work out, how do I play in D with a capo on 9? So I'll show you guys all those different chord progressions. Oh dear. Now, here we go. I'm in the straight jacket again. It's not really, I shouldn't really refer to the Bouzouki that way, but it's just because it's my headphones that dig into me. I've got a cable here as well. I've got to make sure that I don't knock that out. And then I've got to make sure that I do this and to make sure that you guys can actually see. So, can you guys hear me now? Hopefully that's coming through. Okay, I'm hoping that the audio has worked itself out there. Okay, so yeah, guys, you basically have, if I just take the tin whistle one off for a sec. There we go. Okay, so you should be able to do these chords without capo, because it won't even let me go as high as I need to show you guys where I'm putting the fingers here. So for anything that's B minor, take that off and just play it normally down here. But this is going to be your starting chord. So if they say B minor, it's not really, it's B Aeolian. So it should be down here, which I have to move this over now so you guys can see it. So that's your starting chord. Then you're in D. Okay, so that's why I never use a capo for the B minor or B Aeolian, because I'm going to be going into D Ionian anyway. Okay, for G, you could play, start off with just your normal G. So G first inversion, C chord, D chord, E minor, B minor, C, D, G. So you should be able to do the G pieces without a capo. Sometimes you want the resonance of G a little bit more, so put your capo on 5. And again, your patterns will have to change a wee bit to reflect that, of course. So now your G's up here. So it's a bit more sort of a downward motion for a lot of my chords. So without the capo, I'm going up a lot. With the capo, I'm going down a lot. And with the A, it's up here. So just put it up another 2. But you should be able to play anything in A major just down here, you know, starting with A5 or even A minor. So that'll be A. C, D, E minor, or E5. Back to A5. So that's the nice thing about, you know, using the power chords, that, you know, A5, D5, E5, G5, all those chords, because you can use them for major or minor. But I wanted to play this in A major. I just take that C chord out. Don't need it. Do this A chord here. So this would look like. So it's really A over C sharp if you don't play the top. I'll give you up to D. Then just do your E5 after that. It requires a lot of work doing A that way, but it's sometimes nice where you don't have to sort of stop the energy to pick down, or, you know, set the instrument down or find a capo or something that you just keep playing. You know, so if someone's going from D into A, it might be nice just to go straight into it without having to stop and then find a capo and then put the capo on 7 and then get back to your, you know, it just kills the energy sometimes doing that. So maybe just learning a couple of chord progressions in A. Da da dum for A major. For A Aeolian. Yeah. So, or capo 1/7 if you prefer having those like we did with Scatter the Mud. Ooh, get my camera right someday. There we go. I'm gonna need a second camera, a third camera even. Okay, so I'm hoping that has helped, guys. You know, with the apologies if the audio went out, but I'm hoping it helps that you guys do actually now know from this handout, notes used in Irish traditional music, that you can, of course, sit down and learn. You know, maybe just 1 or 2 chord progressions per tune or per tuning. Okay. Based on these modes. Okay, these are the most important things. Okay. Radio. Let me see if I can just get my face back up here. Just make sure. Just going to test out my audio again, guys, because that was a wee bit weird that my audio cut out. I was hoping you guys could hear me with the tin whistle mic, but it doesn't look like it. Maybe when I play whistle, then I can't also use the same mic for speaking. Kind of annoying. Okie doke. Radio. So let me see. That is definitely one of the main handouts to learn, guys. For those of you who are in the full course, you'll be able to access that. If I can remember where I got it. I got it in part 3, and it looks like it's part of lesson 15. Okay, so do you have a wee look-see at that handout? I use that handout for basically nearly everything, actually, for tin whistle, for bouzouki, for teaching students just where the notes are on for every tune. Those tend to be the notes that you'll see in every single tune, guys, unless you are learning a fiddle or an accordion tune, which can go lower than that D. But about 90% or maybe 95% of all tunes in Irish trad music are based on those notes in the treble clef from D up to high B. And that's the tin whistle notation underneath. That's one of the main reasons why, is because instruments like the tin whistle, the flute, and the pipes rarely go above that B. It's possible if you're a good player to get into high D even, another D above that. So B up to C sharp up to D. But it's not common. okay, to do that. B is the highest note. And because that is the sort of limitation, these are the 5 or so modes, or maybe it's a bit more than 5. You have your D Ionian, your G Ionian. It's the Ionian mode. Okay, so both of those are Ionian. I think it's 4 modes then. You have your A Dorian, your E Dorian. You have your D Mixolydian, your A Mixolydian, and you have your E Aeolian and your B Aeolian. Okay, so you have your Ionian, your Dorian, your Mixolydian, and your Aeolian. If you know where those modes occur, where those scalic ideas occur, it's worthwhile sitting down and learning them. You know, for with or without the capo. Yeah. So if I was to just edit this a little, just to show you guys where to put capos and stuff. Maybe if I do it like this, can I add text in here? Oh, good, I can. D Ionian, no capo. A wee bit large. Let's make that a bit smaller and make it blue, just so it blends in. Okay, so maybe make it 9. Yeah. Maybe even smaller, make it 8. Okay. So no capo for anything that's in, yeah, that's D. You can. I'm always thinking of the exceptions. Let's see. If I was to add capo 1-5. Yeah, this is an interesting exception. What happens if you do want this, like, you don't want so much resonance? Say, for example, you're playing with another bouzouki player, and you want to, you know, play with them. You're really best to try and avoid doing this. But say the two of you know the tune really well, but you don't want to be doing the exact same thing, and you follow each other quite well. Instead of playing D with no capo, try adding your capo on the 5th fret. But you're really, or is it the 6th fret would be the one I'm thinking of? Yeah, sorry, the 7th fret. Add your capo to the 7th fret, but play as if you're in G. So what does that look like? Okay, so I'll play 2 chord progressions, one with and one without. Okay, so let me see. Oh. Yeah, I'll use this angle and just move it over a little. There we go. Okay, so here is the chord. This is in the key of D. I put my capo on the 7th fret, and I'm playing as if I'm in G. So this is the chord that I'm using here. If I show you that on the reverse chord app, put the capo here. And then just there. So it looks like the fingering as if you're playing G, without the capo, but as soon as, obviously, when you put it on the 7th fret, it's now D, A, F sharp, and A. So this is a possibility that if you wanted to use a capo in the key of D, you don't have to do this, but if you just wanted something different. Has a nice sort of brightness to it, so you play that chord and then, so it's your G add 9 over D again. That's a very common complicated chord, but a common chord enough in trad music. And that's sort of maybe it's a weird chord, this one. Like a D major 7 chord. So if you're doing some da 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 da, let me see if I can find the Mountain Road one for you, just to so you can hear the difference. Let me see. That was in part 1, wasn't it? Mountain Road. Yeah, somewhere in here. There it is. Okay, so again, this is just for copyright reasons. I'm just doing it in the background with MuseScore file, so it's not the nicest of playing, but it's just let you hear the tune with the chords. Now you can do everything in here. But you'll notice that that chord progression is exactly the same as the G major chord progression without the capo. So for me, learning that is really handy because I play that in G Ionian, and I also play it in D Ionian if I put the capo on the 7th fret. Just do exactly the same chord movements. Just add the capo, do the same thing, and now suddenly we're in the key of D. Over here. Yeah. So, do you want to do that? So sometimes it's nice and bright, you know, to have that as a difference, you know, in your playing. Do you want to have that? And you can change it a wee bit more. So yeah, it's sometimes I think nice to have the D up here if somebody else is already playing it way down here. So you're not, you know, you're not going to be at risk of overlapping with somebody doing. Which is what I think was the Mountain Road, where you have that they're off doing that da 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 dum. So if I go back to desktop, yeah, capo or yeah, so no capo or capo 7. Okay, so it's up to you guys. What would you prefer to do there? It's all context. It may call for that sometimes to do capo on 7. Nearly all the time, you shouldn't need to be going that high. Is there any way I can make this see-through so it doesn't actually block? I'm just going to have to make this text really, really small. Is there any way I can do that? What's the smallest I can make this? 6? Yeah, that's probably about... I don't want it too small though. Okay, so those are the two areas. No capo or capo on 7. So that's probably the sort of only 2 times you'll ever need a capo for D or G. Is capo on 7 for the D one, and for the G one it would be capo on 5. So let's do same thing. Let's copy and paste this in, except we'll change the color. Try to keep everything color coordinated for you guys, so you can actually see what it's referring to. I think this one's the orange. Yeah, zoom in. Oh, get a photo of me. I definitely need another webcam because I keep pushing buttons so you guys can see me. It's hard to do that when you've got an instrument wrapped around you. No capo or capo on 5. Yeah, so that's for the G. I wonder, does it work for D Mixolydian now? You guys got me thinking. Which I like. I'm heading on a commute home. We'll be listening in the car. Thanks so much, Declan, and everyone with a fantastic question. See you next week. Yeah, Kathleen, no worries. Just chilling out. Yeah, more than welcome. Good stuff. Okay, now if I just copy that down here, just to see, I've never thought about the D Mixolydian, using the capo. So let me think of a D Mixolydian tune. It's possible, it just doesn't sound as nice. I've never used it. It's possible. Capo on 7 again for the D Mixolydian. Like if you're doing that. Da, 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 da. It's awkward enough for me to have to relearn that up with different fingering, but I'd say without the capo. Yeah, you're missing that. Yeah, you're missing that lovely rich C chord, which is the sort of quality of D Mixolydian, to have like a C chord in there. I'm gonna put my foot down and say no capo. Okay. Video. I suppose the main reason as well, if students ever ask, like, what chords could you come up with on the capo, it just saves me having to say, I don't know. You tell me, you practice it and you let me know, because I can't come up with anything as nice, and if it doesn't have the capo. Okay. Same thing for E Aeolian. I've never played it without a capo on 2. So there are certain things, where it's just sounds better, guys. I know there's going to be some purists out there who are going to say you should be able to, as a proper luthier or proper guitar bouzouki player, you should be able to play any key, at all. It's almost like cheating, adding the capo, as if like you're doing the transposing button on a keyboard. Just learn everything in C and then just transpose it up and down. So learn everything in one key and transpose it up and down. Yeah, okay. I get the argument, but if it sounds better, I don't care if it's a cheat or a loss of technique. What matters is what comes out of the instrument. That's paramount. if it sounds okay, but you have to use like all four fingers, like for every single chord and different weird inversions, just to get it to sound this kind of not as good as with a capo, then what was the point? It's an interesting, exercise in technique building, sure enough, okay. But for performance, when you're playing in front of people with other musicians, you need to make it sound as good as possible. So adding the capo on too just sounds better. Because now you just do everything you would do as if you were in, D minor or something, or D Mixolydian. Or A. Yeah, capo on too for that. I take the capo off and try to get the same effect. Maybe I should be. You'd have to do quite a lot of barring, but I suppose that's alright. Just doesn't sound as good. Barring on the guitar sounds good. Barring on the bouzouki, I don't think sounds as good, because the whole point of it, especially when you're tuning GDAD, GDAD, is to make it sound as resonant and full and rich as possible. If you start barring and dampening strings, like, to get your E minor, it just doesn't sound as good as, adding a capo and playing this. That just sounds nicer. Interesting take on that tune. Yeah, okay. That might be interesting, actually. Yeah, Julian. Okay. Capo on 2 for him. For the A Mixolydian, you should be able to do that without capo, or capo on 7. Let me see. What color was he? Like a sort of weirdish yellowish thing. Let me figure out what the color is. Let's keep everything color coordinated. Is it you? I think it was him. Yeah. Okay, so no capo or capo on 7. Okay, so no capo. So for that A Mixolydian. Let me think. Yeah, okay, without the capo sounds nice and resonant too. And it sounds better, I think, capo on 7. Yeah, it sounds better up there. Okay. No capo for B Aeolian. Let me just put him in. Come on. Fiddly little app, this. Purple. Okay. What are we missing up here? E Dorian. Yeah. Capo 1, 2. And the Dorian mode, that's not really. There are some tunes that are far more, modes that are far more popular than others. I think I actually did a video in the full course, like outlining what are the main, the percentage. I went through about, 500 or 600 tunes of the most popular tunes in trad music, and out of the 500 or 600 that I went through, the Ionian mode came up the most. Mixolydian is quite popular as well. I think Aeolian. I don't think was it E Dorian? Yeah, it's E Aeolian. That's the least common, I think. I'll have a wee check of that just to be sure. Because there's some that are far more popular than others, and there's not much point in trying out different capo positions for ones that you're hardly ever going to use. Okay, so that was this guy. Okay, let me see. Part 4, was it? Yeah, modes using tune books. Yeah, it's the Aeolian. E and the B. That B one, by the way, even when it is used, as I say, the second half of it nearly always goes into D, so I never use a capo on that. Like out of the 1, 2, 3, 400 actually for this study, there's 400 tunes I looked at, only 7 of those 400 use the B Aeolian in the essential, or 7 out of the 100, sorry, and 9 in total. Then, my goodness, that's hardly anything. 2.2% of the entire 400 were in that B Aeolian mode, and E Aeolian's not much better. A Mixolydian is super rare. I don't even put it in here, into that other handout, because it is so rare. That A Mixolydian, I wouldn't even worry too much about it. Yeah. So don't be worrying too much about the A Mixolydian. There's only like 8 tunes there. Definitely need to get the Ionian ones, like 67%. More than 2/3 is using the one mode, even though there's loads of modes. And most of it does tend to be the Ionian. I suppose that reflects the change in times, guys, where, pop music and everything uses a lot of triadic harmony, and, sometimes they use modes, but most of the time they use major and minor. So it's it is affecting the tradition that way. Well, for A Dorian then, let's see where A Dorian is in the scale. Yeah, that's quite high up. So we should maybe think about a couple of different, variations of that. Can we do that with the capo or without? Without the capo, you do need to get that. Goes to C again. Yeah, so it's going to be very similar. Yeah, using that C. The only difference between that and the A Ionian would be yeah, you're using that C sharp. Okay, so I would say you could actually get away with no capo or capo 1/7 as well for him. So it's the same as if you're playing A Mixolydian, really. So anything to do with A, capo 1/7. Anything to do with E, capo 1/2. Anything to do with G, capo 1, where is it? 5. But you should be able to do no capo, no capo, no capo, no capo, no capo, no capo. See how many of them are, you shouldn't really need a capo? Yeah. The only one that I would insist that you definitely should, use a capo on is for the E Dorian or E Aeolian. But see how you get on. You may prefer, those sort of more advanced or complicated chords that you would get from doing it without a capo. It's just that for me, I prefer tunes that or accompaniment that sounds really rich and resonant, and also requires fast playing if I need to. And if I have to move between, like one chord after another that requires 4 or sometimes more fingers, I probably wouldn't bother. Probably got the worst music stand imaginable here. One of these Stag music stands that has the bottom that keeps spinning. Okay. There we go. Yeah, sometimes these instruments love fighting back. Okay. So I've kind of updated that. I'm going to put that back into the course, guys, but it's now turning into a bit of a monster of a handout. It's like all the note pitches, all the fingerings for tin whistle, all the where those notes occur on the tab, including cross string. You're going into the second course for some of these notes, all the modes, and now all the capos. It's like the most complicated handout ever, But if it's useful, if it works, it works. So I'm just going to save that, and then I'm just going to plop that into the course, or at least I'll have to do that. I'm going to give it over to you guys in a second. Put, what would you call this? Notes used in Irish traditional music into course. Lesson 15 from the looks of it. Lesson 15 handout E. Okay. Yeah, look how many of the tunes just D Ionian, G Ionian. Yeah, and then probably A Dorian would be the next most popular. D Mixolydian's popular enough. God, and some of them are just, some of them are really going out of style, out of fashion. That would be worthwhile if the PhD research is to see, where there's certain keys that were more popular in the past than what we have now. Okay, let me just get rid of all this stuff. Let me see where I shouldn't have closed that. There we go. Lesson 15E. Yeah, it's saved. It's always worthwhile checking. Okay, I'm gonna pop this. Yeah, how am I gonna get this to you guys? I suppose the way I would do this is I would put this in the course and also the Bouzouki class as well. So anyone who's in the Bouzouki class is going to get this. So I can't really upload anything to YouTube. And imagine if YouTube had its own little, chat function, or you just don't chat, but you can actually put in, all the different handouts and everything. But I think I might run into problems if I try to do that now. Let's see. Paul, the more I listen to you and watch you, the more I realize how little I know. Lots of work to be done. Next thing. It depends. This is the problem that I find as well, guys. And I'm the same. When I'm learning something new, because I'd be like you as an adult, I'd be like, interested. And why is that? Why is that the way it is? One of the main reasons that younger people, when they're learning music, learn it faster. It's not that they just take it to it, because they actually don't have the experience, or the same they haven't developed the same learning skills as adults or teenagers or adults. But when really young kids are learning stuff for the first time, it's rare. It's super rare that they would ask why. When adults do, it opens up a can of worms, because then you have to go into the whole history behind things. But for example, if I was teaching a student about, just notation, okay, if I go into like lesson 3, I think it was, and just start teaching, the stuff that you guys would have been learning if you've gotten to lesson 15 yet in the full course or whatever. And if I was teaching them this stuff, I would say, okay, this is called the treble clef, and these are the notes of the scale. They would just say, okay. Whereas I reckon about 8 or 7 or 8 times out of 10, an adult learner will say, "Why is it called that?" Like, oh God, okay. And it's like trying to teach somebody English and then they question where every letter of the alphabet came from. It's like, why do we use A before B? And where did A come from? Was there not, like, why did we move away from the Greek alphabet? And why do we have some Greek stuff along with Latin stuff, when a lot of, I just think, okay, you're getting into the whole history of it. So the why is great. I love the why. It just means, though, that you end up going into a lot of detail. And so don't be thinking you guys tonight have to go, oh my God, I have to sit down and learn the whole history of counterpoint or, polyphonic texture. No. It's just to show you guys where it all comes from, to give you like a background understanding of it too. Incidentally, if you are wondering why, you've got to imagine like this is being written by, a medieval monk. And this would have been known as the G clef because it covers this line, which is the G line. But imagine you're looking at the Book of Kells and the very first symbol, it looks like it's meant to be a very sort of decorative G. That's where, it used to come from, is that it does look, it's sort of developed out of medieval manuscripts. So the really sort of ornate, beautiful, beginnings to texts or music. So it's one of those sort of leftovers from an earlier time. So yeah, so don't be thinking that you have to take it all in at once, guys. Little baby steps, just a little bit here and there. But if you're ever interested, like, do let me know if you want to know why did this thing occur, and what's the purpose of it, how did it develop like that, and why do we do it this way and not this way? Yeah, perfectly valid questions. Just be aware that the answer mightn't be easy. Rarely is it easy, in fact. If anything, it's overly complicated. Let me see. Cooley's Reel. Where did I get Mountain Road from again? I think it was lesson 1, wasn't it? Or part 1. Yeah, okay. Just make sure Mountain Road is in there. Oh, have I deleted it? Bring you in here. There we go. Get him back. Okay. Yeah. Very little I know. You guys don't worry. It will come. That's like a lot of the stuff that I do when it comes to teaching. Believe it or not, Bouzouki is probably like second or third, maybe third on the stuff that I teach. Like most of the stuff I teach students, the complicated theoretical stuff. Yeah, that is like sort of the primary thing, is like music history, music theory. Yeah, that covers A-level and GCSE secondary school qualifications before you get into university, and university level harmony and stuff I teach as well. So like the bouzouki and the tin whistle and the piano, they're sort of my favorite things to teach, because you're playing music, whereas the other things I teach, A-level music theory, oral skills, history, musicianship, like all those other things are heavy. That's where the why does matter. When you're listening to a piece of classical music, can you tell what period it's from? Can you tell what chord progressions are used? Can you tell what key it modulates to? All that sort of stuff. Oral skills. So if you're ever interested in that stuff, do let me know. Like one of the ones a lot of students will ask is, okay, now that you've done that handout, Declan, on where the capo goes, how do I know to put it there? I know that it goes there for E minor, but how do I know when I'm in the key of E minor without shouting out to someone in the pub, what key are we in? That comes with practice, of course, but there's a sort of shorthand way of doing it, and that is to find those top 3 strings every time. So if you're in the key of, D or something, you should try strumming gently the top 3 strings. So just that will let you know that you're in the key of D, and that could be D Mixolydian or D Ionian. If you hear like da 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 dum da da dum, there's sort of a weird da dum at the very end of the scale, or if you hear that little somewhere in the music, that's how you know that you're in Mixolydian. So you should be looking out for this. Dum dum. Like one of the pieces of music you could like an air that you could think about would be like She Moved Through the Fair or something. If I bring that up in piano, I don't really need that. I'm just going to bring my piano out. What's this? Sorry. I'm just going to bring the piano out just so we can actually see it for once. Yay, makes it a lot easier to play. Yeah, I suppose you could. So hopefully you guys could hear how that still sounds like you're in a major key. However, we have da-da. Whenever you hear that in trad music, that's sort of flattened seventh, and blues musicians would call that, the flattened seventh. In trad music, that's an indication that you're in Mixolydian, so it sounds like you're in a major key. Da, da. So you have that. If you're in D Ionian, it's a completely different chord. You don't use C, you would use A major. Da, da. That's called the leading note, leading in to the tonic key of D. Okay. So that's where sometimes someone might shout out to you, and this is where you as a bouzouki player or as a guitarist or whatever, any sort of accompaniment instrument to the tune, you would need to know that sometimes the answer you get when you ask for the key is not the right answer. Okay, so a fiddle player and a flute player may never have bothered with learning like modal harmony. They may just think, oh, it's in the key of D because da 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 1 2 3 4 5 do re mi fa so, and think, okay, that sounds major to me, but not realize that da changes everything, changes the harmony you're going to use. Are you going to use this type of harmony? Or are you going to use this type of harmony? Da-dum. Doo-doo. Okay, so watch out for that. That's the Mixolydian thing. So if you're in the key of D, yeah, D major or D Ionian, I should say. Or it could be D Mixolydian if you have that. Okay, if you're in the key of G major, you could just, strum the bottom string to see it doesn't sound like the drone that you hear throughout the piece. Will that harmonize with the tune that you're hearing? So maybe something that's like the Kesjig. So try and hear a drone in your head when you're listening to somebody play, and does it, are you able to keep a drone in that tonic drone going throughout that tune, and does it sound good when you do that? So very lightly I would just play on the G, just hear, does that sound like that's the key we're in? If you want to play without a capo, and get that G, or you can put your capo on the 5th fret and do the same thing again, just strum the top 3 strings, and does that does that harmonize well with the tonic, or does it sound like it goes with the tune? So just the same way that you would have done without a capo, You know, and listen out. Da 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 da. The mountain road. I'm gonna see, can I actually activate my tin whistle, because you should be able to actually hear, hopefully, my tin whistle. I don't know why it wasn't working tonight. Hopefully you guys can hear that. So see, it does harmonize. Can't play it in one hand. But yeah, when you hear that, you should be able to hear the way through that tune. Da, 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 da. So that's the thing, is that can you hear the drones? And then of course the same logic's going to apply. Is it an A minor? You know, add the capo. So you're in that. But again, it doesn't have the. It's da-dum. So always watch out, guys, for these da-dum flattened sevenths that you hear in the music, trad music. It's one of the defining characteristics. You think, oh, that's a minor, you know, key, but it's actually not. So that handout is super important. Let's bring it up again. It's one of the ones I would probably study. I wish I had this when I was learning, because I remember sitting down once trying to discover all the different melodies that are used in trad music, and I found, but by myself, that these are all modes. There's like 4 modes, and then I read Brendan Brannock's book on folk music in Ireland, and he talks all about that in the book. And I'm like, not that I thought I discovered anything new, but I thought, if only I had, read this book first, it would have saved me so much, time and effort trying to work out all these keys. Speaking of which, notes used, there we go. Yeah, it's buried in lesson 15, but it is super duper important little handout. Yeah. So that one, so it's A, B, C, no C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A. So we're using the A Dorian for that. So no capo or capo 1/7. So does it sound like capo 1/7? A, E, A. So your tonal center is around A, whereas something that's like the mountain road, tonal center is D. Okay, so it's finding those tonal centers. I wouldn't ever rely on, unless there's somebody there who is like somebody who's a bouzouki player or a guitar player, who, from the sounds of it, from what you've gauged from their performance, that they know what they're doing, and you can always ask them, what are we in? They might still turn around to you and say, we're in A minor, and you think, well, we're not really in A minor if there's no G sharp, or and there's an F sharp in there. That's not a minor scale. Your natural minor should just be those notes. Actually, if I was to add in Let me. Yeah, let me see if I can keep those. That's your natural minor, your Aeolian mode, actually. If you were adding in the F sharp, that's your Dorian. Okay, and if you're raising the 7th, that's called the harmonic minor scale. Anyone who's learned like classical music has probably had to do these, as part of their grades, learning them from grade 1 to grade 2 to grade 3 to grade 4 and so on. They put students through this. If that doesn't, it's one of it is important for them to know about scales, but my goodness, the way that it's done, it can be a little bit soul destroying. Thankfully nowadays they do happen to have, apps and other things that are a bit more engaging for students to practice their scales along with real pieces of music, so they're not just spending hours just going like the way I would have done as a kid, just going up and down the piano. And not only that, but separating your fingers out, in thirds and fifths and stuff. It's good for technique, but it can kill the fun. And that's the reason why a lot of people leave learning music, because they just see a mountain to climb, and they don't see it as an experience, as a nice thing to do. It's like, chore. I have to practice now. I have to practice my scales. This is the ones that students hated doing, was the harmonic minor and the melodic minor, which has the 6th and 7th raised F sharp and G sharp, 6th, 7th, A, and then they're lowered going down. So there's one scale that's different going up and going down. There's reasons behind all that as well. So yeah, this is the thing about relying too much on other people who are there on the night to tell you the key. This is the stuff that it's worthwhile delving into a little, not too much, just a little, just so that what are the main keys used, main notes used in Irish traditional music. What are the modes that are used? Where's my capo traditionally going to go? Do I need a capo even? What chord progressions do I have ready, in my back pocket to play in whatever key? And can I hear the key? Can I hear it? That takes training, that takes practice. But the more you listen to trad music, guys, the more, you actually listen to tunes, listen to sessions, listen to CDs and MP3s and everything, and real life sessions. The better you will become at this and be able to distinguish these different modes from one another. Okay. So yeah, hopefully that will help a little. Okie dokie. Any other questions, guys? So yeah, it's homework for me, but any other questions from you guys? Is everybody okay? So yeah, this will go out to all you guys in the full course. Don't worry, you'll get this handout. Yeah. Oh, better turn that off. Okay. Let me just check as well. Yeah, I think we'll leave it there tonight, guys. We're about to start the Bouzouki webinar for you guys who are in the full course or who are paying the monthly subscription to do the lesson stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna get stuck into that, and yeah, we'll pick it up here next week again, guys. Same time, community time. So the community from 5 o'clock onwards every week. So yeah, if you need anything, just let me know. And of course, guys, you can post into the community questions ahead of time. You don't have to wait, until the community. So if there's anything that you are finding tricky or any questions that you have about music in general, yeah, you send them to me in advance and we can do them in the community. Or just type it into the community or my YouTube channel. Okay. Anyway, guys, we'll leave it there and I'll see you again next week. All the best.